Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will be analyzing the case of Lee Ann Daigle. I'll start with the background, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Lee Ann Daigle was born on March 18, 1964, and lived in Frenchville, Maine. This town, with a population of about 1,000, is in northern Maine on the border with Canada. In 1983, she earned an associate's degree in business clerical. Lee Ann worked at a jewelry store and lived with her mother on Main Street in Frenchville. Before moving to the timeline of the crime, let's hear a word from today's sponsor, Factor. Eat stress-free with Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals. Every fresh, never-frozen meal is chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. All you have to do is heat and enjoy. There is no preparation, and there is no mess. Skip the grocery store, the takeout trap, and cooking fatigue. When things get hectic, Factor is flexible. Change your order every week with plans from 4 to 18 meals per week, or pause or reschedule your deliveries anytime. Factor is the perfect solution if you're looking for fast, upscale options done easily, and it's less expensive than takeout. After a long day of researching, analyzing, and recording, Factor is my go-to solution to stay efficient and to avoid wasting time on cooking or going to the grocery store. They offer nutritious options that make it easy for me to stick to my goals. Head to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code 50DrGrande to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. That's code 50DrGrande at Factor75.com to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On December 7, 1985, a man named Armand Pelletier and his wife Lorraine were in their house in Frenchville, Maine. Just before 10 a.m., Armand discovered the body of a dead infant girl on his lawn. The police were contacted. Here is what they found during the course of their investigation. The girl, who would later be referred to as Baby Jane Doe, or simply Baby Jane, was not wearing any clothing and was covered in blood. Her body was partially frozen, and 8 inches of the umbilical cord was still attached. About 1,000 feet from the Pelletier house, the police noticed an entrance to a large gravel pit. There was a single set of tire tracks on the dirt road entering the gravel pit. The tracks terminated about 20 feet in. In front of the tire tracks, there was a large pool of blood, a placenta, and excrement. Several small footprints peppered with drops of blood led officers about 40 feet east, where there were a few trees. Here, there were dog tracks headed west toward the Pelletier house. The police believed that the Pelletier's dog, a Siberian husky named Paka, had found Baby Jane's body under the trees and brought her back to the Pelletier residence. An autopsy revealed that Baby Jane was 18.5 inches long and weighed 6.5 pounds. The medical examiner believed it was likely she had been born alive. There was no reason to believe otherwise. Baby Jane's cause of death was exposure. The medical examiner believed that she would have survived only about 5 to 10 minutes in the cold. The temperature the night before had dropped well below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. This case was treated like a homicide, and the investigation continued. In 1985, DNA testing was in its very early stages and not at all sophisticated. 1985 was the first year DNA testing had been used in a criminal case. DNA testing did not become widely used until the 1990s. Over the next several years, analytical capabilities advanced considerably. Baby Jane's blood was preserved and would be analyzed for DNA years later in 2009. A profile was developed by the Maine State Police Crime Laboratory, but no match was identified at that time. Baby Jane's body was taken to a Catholic cemetery in Bangor, Maine, and buried in an unmarked plot. In 2018, the police started using genetic genealogy to assist in the identification of Baby Jane's biological parents. In 2021, the police found the baby's father. This was an important development, and they probably thought it would lead to the case being closed. Unfortunately, the man was in a nursing home and in very poor health. The man said he didn't remember fathering a child in 1985. The police continued to search for the mother. Eventually, they identified a man and a woman who were probably baby Jane's grandparents. This discovery led them to Lee Ann Daigle, who by this time was no longer living in Frenchville, Maine. Rather, she lived in Lowell, Massachusetts. On April 7, 2022, the police met with Lee Ann and mentioned how they were investigating the death of baby Jane. They had uncovered information suggesting that Lee Ann may be related to the victim. Lee Ann emphatically denied that she was the mother. She stated that she was living in New Hampshire at the time baby Jane was born and died. The police requested Lee Ann's DNA. After initially refusing, she changed her mind and gave them a sample. The results of the analysis indicated that Lee Ann was the mother of baby Jane. On April 20, 2022, the police spoke to Lee Ann again. They told her that using DNA, they had identified her as the biological mother of baby Jane. At this time, Lee Ann changed her story. She admitted that she was baby Jane's mother, but said that back in 1985, she did not realize she was pregnant with baby Jane. Her story was that she was driving home from work and stopped to urinate. As she was doing this, a gush came out. Lee Ann went home after this and showered and had no idea that she had given birth. Later, Lee Ann changed her story again. She admitted that she had become aware of her pregnancy in the fall of 1985. Lee Ann did not inform anyone that she was pregnant, and she concealed her pregnancy by wearing baggy clothing. She did not know who the father was and indicated that baby Jane's conception was probably the result of a casual sexual encounter. The police asked Lee Ann what options she had considered upon realizing she was pregnant. Lee Ann said something to the effect of, "Sad to say, but kind of, get rid of it, An officer responded, "What is the way you are thinking of right now?" Lee Ann said, "Well, leaving it. Whatever happens, happens." When asked if that's kind of what happened, Lee Ann responded, "Yeah." Later, the police asked Lee Ann if she had considered other ways to end baby Jane's life. Lee Ann responded, No. It was abandonment." An officer said, "Just kind of like wash your hands of her?" Lee Ann said, "Yup." The detective said, "Like that's easier." Lee Ann chuckled and repeated, "Yup." During various interviews, Lee Ann acknowledged that abandoning a baby in frigid temperatures would cause death. During one interview, she asked, "Isn't this sort of committing murder?" In response, an officer asked her the question, "Do you consider it to be that?" Lee Ann responded, yes and no. It's just more like I said before, it's like more of an abandonment. But who does that? Lee Ann made it clear to the officers that she had no second thoughts and never considered returning and saving baby Jane's life. She had fully committed to her homicidal decision. On June 9, 2022, Lee Ann was indicted for first-degree murder. The murder allegedly occurred on December 6 or December 7, 1985. On April 6, 2023, under a plea agreement, Lee Ann pleaded guilty to manslaughter. This was an open plea. There were no promises made to her about a sentence. She could have been sentenced up to the maximum of 20 years in prison. At her sentencing on June 20, 2023, the state asked for Lee Ann to be sentenced to between 15 and 18 years in prison. Her defense attorney suggested that Lee Ann's actions had not gone without punishment. She lived with that horrible night every day since she was 21 years old. He went on to suggest that Lee Ann had been internally plagued by horrible memories of giving birth in the gravel pit in December. Lee Ann stated, quote, "If I had known she was alive, I would have given her the best chance for survival. I live with the consequences every day," unquote. The judge pointed out that Lee Ann must have lied at some point because her statements to the police did not match what she was saying during the sentencing hearing. He gave Lee Ann the opportunity to talk to her attorney and consider addressing the inconsistent statements. However, he did not force her to revise her statement. He would have proceeded whether she made a statement or not. Lee Ann spoke to her attorney and then said, quote, "Your Honor, when I spoke to the police, I was nervous, scared, and embarrassed. I did not tell the police everything. I tried to block the night out, but I can't. What I told you is the truth. What I feel is real, unquote. The judge sentenced 58-year-old Lee Ann Daigle to 16 years in prison, with all but 6 years suspended. She could be released as early as November 5, 2026. Lee Ann's appeal accused the judge of violating her right against self-incrimination by putting her on the spot during the sentencing hearing, but the appeal was unsuccessful. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. As I mentioned, baby Jane was discovered by a Siberian husky named Paka. She brought her body back to the Pelletier house and repeatedly pounded on the sliding glass door to get the attention of the Pelletiers. It seems clear that Paka was trying to be of assistance. She was trying to help baby Jane. The dog had more compassion for the infant than Lee Ann Daigle ever did. In 1987, 2 years after baby Jane's death, Paka died from cancer at the age of 12. The Pelletiers have given several interviews to the media, both before and after Lee Ann was identified as the killer. They indicated how they were devastated by the murder of baby Jane. The couple was not able to have children of their own, and they would have gladly adopted the infant. Item number 2. After killing her daughter, Lee Ann moved on with her life as if nothing happened. She became romantically involved with a man named John Daigle and moved to New Hampshire with him at the end of 1985. The couple married in 1987. They had 2 daughters, Lauren and Kristen. Eventually, Lee Ann and John divorced. As far as her career, Lee Ann worked as an IT specialist for a defense contractor for 30 years. Item number 3. Lee Ann's defense claimed that she had a condition called pregnancy denial. What is this, and does it have any bearing on this case? In the research literature, pregnancy denial is typically referred to as denial of pregnancy or concealment of pregnancy. Technically speaking, denial and concealment are separate constructs because a person can conceal a pregnancy without denying a pregnancy. About 0.25% of deliveries involve denial of pregnancy. There are 3 types: pervasive, affective, and psychotic. With pervasive denial, the emotional significance and the very existence of the pregnancy is outside the awareness of the woman who is affected. All the physical symptoms of pregnancy, like weight gain and even labor pain, can be misinterpreted. With affective denial, the woman only denies the emotional component of the pregnancy. She continues to think, feel, and behave as if she is not pregnant. Life goes on, and she does not emotionally invest in the pregnancy, but she realizes that she is pregnant. The last type, psychotic denial, is straightforward. The woman is delusional, out of touch with reality. This type is rare. Considering how Lee Ann admitted that she knew she was pregnant, and there is no evidence of psychosis, it is reasonable to believe that if she had denial of pregnancy, then the type she had was affective. Again, with this type, the woman realizes that she is pregnant. This brings me to item number 4. A number of people have defended Lee Ann Daigle, arguing that she was a confused young woman and she did not know what she was doing. A prison sentence is too harsh under the circumstances. Some even falsely claimed that baby Jane didn't really suffer by dying in sub-zero temperatures. Other people disagree. They think that Lee Ann should have been convicted of first-degree murder. They are stunned that the state offered such a generous plea bargain, especially considering how Lee Ann herself suggested that she committed murder. Was justice served in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Lee Ann admitted to committing murder, so trying her for first-degree murder would have been the right move for the state of Maine. She knew what she was doing when she killed baby Jane. Lee Ann understood the difference between right and wrong when she carried out a particularly heinous and cruel homicide. I think the state felt like giving Lee Ann a break was warranted because there weren't as many resources available for pregnant women in 1985. But they may have overlooked a few other factors. Pregnancy can certainly cause stress and feelings of confusion, but Lee Ann was 21, had a place to live, had earned an associate's degree, and had a job. It wasn't like she was 16 years old, homeless, uneducated, and unemployed. She really didn't have an excuse for her behavior. I am also skeptical about this idea that Lee Ann suffered immensely and was profoundly affected by regret. 37 years after the murder, when the police found her, Lee Ann denied ever having baby Jane. When she did admit to the murder, she tried to make it seem like abandonment was no big deal. There was no malice or anything. She didn't consider other ways to commit the murder. These are not the behaviors of someone burdened by unimaginable guilt and shame, rather of someone who is still trying to leave her problems behind in the cold and the darkness. The lesson learned in this case is that callous, remorseless, and sadistic killers can hide in plain sight. For years, as people interacted with Lee Ann, it probably never occurred to them that she could be a killer. Her emotions were as frozen as the horrific death she inflicted on baby Jane. There's a sense that Lee Ann is upset by her sentence because she lived a good life after committing murder. But is going for years while forgetting one's crime really living a good life? Lee Ann only proved that prison is exactly where she belonged the entire time. 6 years in prison was a gift, not justice. Now moving to my final thoughts. Paka, the Siberian Husky, was one hero in this story whose actions are layered with meaning. Known for their loyalty and determination, Huskies embody tenacity which cannot be ignored. One could argue that Paka was trying to send a message not just to her owners about her grim discovery, but to society as a whole regarding its darkest failings. Like she was asking, what is wrong with people? Who does this to a child? Paka may have lived a short life, but she used it to send a profound and enduring message. Like a reserved and powerful judge on human cruelty, the dog issued a warning on the dangers of a world where nothing is sacred. A world where even the defenseless and the innocent can be targeted for no reason. Those are my thoughts on the case of Lee Ann Daigle. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. In some of the criminal cases that I've covered over the years, criminals have been humbled by the words of a child, right? Like the morality, the lack of morality displayed in the criminal's actions was discussed by a child. Even the child knew what the criminal did was wrong. In this case, it wasn't a child, it was a dog who had the lesson in morality. How much worse is that for a criminal when even a dog knows what they did was wrong? When even a dog has the sensibility to take action to try to preserve life when a human being doesn't? I think that Lee Ann Daigle just really wants this whole situation to be behind her. She wants to serve her time in prison and go on with her life as if nothing ever happened. Just sweep it under the rug. This is her pattern, after all. This is what she does when she is confronted with perceived problems. I think the state made a mistake in sentencing Lee Ann Daigle to only 6 years. It doesn't make a lot of sense based on what she did. Life in prison may have been a little harsh. I'm not sure. I think maybe 30 years would have been good. I mean, she's 58, so 30 years would possibly be a life sentence anyway. But just because somebody gets away with a crime initially and they live a life without further crimes, without more murder, doesn't mean that the sentence should automatically be reduced. This case could be looked at another way, where Lee Ann Daigle escaped justice. She had her life. She was victorious. She abandoned her child. She left her child to die. And she did everything else that she wanted to do. She married. She had children. She had a job. Presumably she had friends and engaged in other activities. So at 58, she was caught, and it's time to pay the price. Yet the state allowed her to escape once again. The first time their excuse was that DNA technology was not advanced enough. That was a good excuse. What is their excuse this time? There's a sense that the state was trying to treat her like she would have been treated in 1985. Well, in 1985, murder was still illegal. So I'm not really sure their argument makes a lot of sense. I get that they have to apply the sentencing for manslaughter as it was in 1985. But that was still up to 20 years in prison. So even with the plea bargain, they could have done 20 years. Of course, that was up to the judge, and the state did ask for a larger penalty than Lee Ann ended up getting due to the suspended sentence component. So I guess they did try somewhat, but they had her confession, so first-degree murder would have been fine. They could have pursued this. They could have gone to trial. They just didn't have the resolve. I think that sometimes when people are able to distance themselves from the circumstances of a murder, it's easy to think that the sentence shouldn't be that great. If someone had to watch baby Jane die, watch her for the 5 or 10 minutes as she was exposed to sub-zero temperatures, they might feel differently about the cruelty level that was evident in this murder. They might not think that Lee Ann Daigle should be out in just a few years. Sometimes when people hear disturbing words, they refuse to let those words form imagery. But imagining the circumstances can help to offer clarity in these types of situations.